Yeah, I got it.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Notice the meeting is properly posted Wednesday, March the 15th. Item 3 is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on 3/13/17. Give a chance to review them.
Make the motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay, now second. All in favor? Aye. Since we're waiting on Kevin, if we could, let's go ahead and skip down to, there he is. Woo!
Better late than never. All right.
Okay. Hi, Kevin. And your sunlight green shirt.
I have more green socks, so we're good. Good for you. All right.
So, since the primary purpose of this meeting was discussions with DHS and the repurposing of the shelter, let's skip item 4 and go, items 5, 6, and 7 all relate to the shelter and some level of discussion with DHS. Item 5 is a possible transfer. Item 6 is the lease, and item 7, the linked document is the grant between the donor and the county. So, do you guys have a preference on 5, 6, or 7? Just in order. Gretchen, do you? Okay. So, item 5, discussion, review, and possible action, making recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to transfer property owned at 5909 North Classen, the Pauline Meyer Shelter, to the state of Oklahoma, DHS, pursuant to statutes, and some consideration to be determined by the board. So, who wants to go first? Hey.
What are the considerations?
Well, 2 or 3 meetings ago, and I don't know how serious you were at the time, but you said just give us the building. And so in light of that comment, I asked that this item appear on the agenda. So I would assume that, and I'm probably assuming wrong, that in order to transfer this property, it would involve owns. Is that correct?
Scott would be better. Owns have, I mean, don't we have to kind of?
They would. I imagine they would probably have to be brought into the transfer, since the agencies legally don't own any property on their own. It's all state owned, which would be owned.
Okay. So as a follow-up to that, then, given your comment, give DHS the building, have you all had any discussions with OMES about this possibility?
I have not.
Okay.
I think our leadership just wanted to find out what the board's reaction, what your thinking is, and if there's consideration. I mean, we have approval to go ahead with it, and at that point we would bring OMS into it.
Although OMS has been very cooperative in, like, the construction delivery method and all, they're up to speed on what's going on, but we haven't gotten down to any specifics about a transfer of ownership.
I believe there's some precedent, right, for transfer to DHS. Counties, other counties have transferred properties to DHS.
That's correct, yes.
Was that prior to OMS? I mean, that's a pretty unwieldy type organization at this point, as I understand it.
Well, I'm not going to go on the record
Okay.
about that at all.
I said it, not you.
My recollection is that those transfers preceded the consolidation of all those individual agencies into what is now OMS. I could get you a list, but I'm almost certain that every one of them was before that.
Well,
Yeah, if I might, please.
yeah, well, let me just, if I could just finish. Given that you all have been pressing us on this time frame issue, and OMS is not even really they're aware, but they're not even yet involved in this discussion. What, from the donor's perspective, would a transfer do? Are they open to waiting? I mean, obviously, at that point, if the building were transferred, we're out of it, but until such time,
Again, the donor's kind of, just waiting to see how everything will play out. I think, I'll have to get back with them to see exactly where they would stand on that, but,
right, because I can't speak for them, but I would hate to transfer a building for the intended purpose of providing services to juveniles, and then for some reason DHS now owns it, and the donor and DHS can't reach an agreement, and...
Right. I think the council, we've, tried to think of other options and opportunities, and I believe the donor is still on board and would be on board with the transfer.
And DHS is fully committed to using the building for the purpose that the donors donated the money. And in fact, if there's any donation, as I understand state law, if they require it to be used for a certain purpose, it has to be used for a certain purpose. Otherwise, it reverts back to the donor. So there wouldn't be any use in us taking a building that we then can't do anything with because we've violated the donor's trust.
And then you've raised the reason we haven't been able to reach an agreement yet on a lease is because you've raised the concern that all you have available budget-wise to operate that building is $160 a year. I'm assuming then that you magically would be able to come up with the money to operate the building?
Well, we're assuming that the operating expenses will go down because of the improvements to the building.
Okay, Ken. Thank you.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned the reversion, because I think if we pursue the transfer option, I think there would have to be some, if you will, campus issues that we would need to address as parking, and because it's not an isolated deal. The use issue, I think, is a very significant. I don't know if, again, we're trying to forecast the future, but if the county relocated the juvenile facility for whatever reason, what happens now in that, and does that trigger a change in your use? And then I do agree with you on that. If DHS stopped using that, I think it should revert back. And so any kind of deed, I think it would have to have some kind of reversionary clause for Commissioner Bond's approval of that, I think. So I think those are three issues, but we kind of like the idea of saying, it's yours, how about it? And but I think those three issues would have to be addressed.
So you're because of parking and reversion?
The use issue, the common campus issues, that are at least parking, and then a reversionary.
Well, are you thinking of, Kevin, a reversionary clause that would state something like,
if it's not used as a shelter, it goes back to the county.
It's not going to be used as a shelter. So for DHS's statutory or lawful purposes, we'll just track the language in the proposed lease, or if the campus is no longer to be used as a juvenile justice campus, in the event of one of those two occurrences, the property would revert back to Oklahoma County. That's what you're thinking of? Okay.
I'm sorry, if I may, I've taken the liberty of speaking to the campus issues that you bring up. I've taken the liberty of establishing a property line around that building, and would like to submit that to the board if that's okay.
Certainly.
And so basically, this outline, about almost an acre and a half of land. And, you know, and again, I mean, possible issues would probably just be centered around paving. When parking lot repairs are made, there would have to be some kind of agreement between the state and the county how that gets done.
Right, and I think fencing and things like that, you don't want to be able to carve up the property that tight, would you?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't foresee us going in and putting up chain link fence, razor wire, anything like that.
In my mind, it's almost like a cross-parking, cross-access agreement or something like that between the deals.
That's the only thing, one of the things I see with this is some of the parking spaces that are right here in what you're saying is the DHS property are actually the judges' parking spaces right now that allow them to get into the back of the juvenile justice building and not go through the public and everything. So, it would have to be an issue of making sure that those 5 parking spaces really closest to the juvenile justice building need to stay for the judges for security purposes, to be able to get back through that building. They have a private entrance.
But I think we're pointing out the issue here is these buildings work together.
Right,
And so to draw too bright a line between the exterior functions might impair both buildings' operations. And so I'm agreeing with Renee on that.
And I'm sorry, I may have misunderstood, but we were talking about the reversion of the property. As far as the donor is concerned, the donor would be entitled to their money back.
I don't think that I wouldn't even be for considering anything in that.
No, but you indicated that if the use changes, which if DHS were to change the use, I can appreciate your position there, but I thought I heard someone say that if the county moves the juvenile justice center, that then...
Would the shelter move too?
It's not going to actually be a shelter.
They're going to provide various services related to.
Well, would the services move too?
Probably.
If the juvenile courts moved, I would say it's likely this would want to move with them.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Is that anticipated?
Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But if it's, I think the ownership of that is and the only reason we would deed that over is to keep it as I mean, we all have the same goal right now, okay? And so we're trying to find that issue. If we're not serving kids on that campus, then you know, it's kind of a different it's kind of a different feel to me.
My point is that if the county were to unilaterally decide to move the juvenile justice center, I can't think that should result in a reversion or reversionary interest back from DHS to the county, because DHS had nothing to do with that decision. So I'm just bringing it up from that standpoint.
I'm unaware of any plans to move the campus. So.
Well, DHS would still be able to do those services out there. It would just be a question of whether they wanted to or not. And if they opted to move them because the courts moved, then that would be the issue, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, at some one of you all asked about possible consideration, and so before we get too far and try and decide parking, et cetera, one of the things that at least I would be interested in hearing from OHMS is if there would be the ability to potentially swap property someplace. A property here in Oklahoma County that would be suitable for a county purpose in exchange for this. property. And if we did a property switch, then I think all of that discussion about reversionary clauses, et cetera, could go off the table.
Yeah,
But
I can't speak to that.
Right, you guys can't speak to that, and so I think before we get much further,
Maybe talk to them.
wait, y'all need to try to get somebody from OMES here that we can have, or OMES and DHS need to formally request to the Board of County Commissioners to transfer the property. Looking at, I mean, my preference would be a property swap to get us completely out of there. But I'm one person.
You know, I think one of the reasons why we proposed deeding this building over was to get these talks off High Center. Because they, you know, as you stated in this meeting, they've been on High Center for a long time now. I am afraid that if we start pursuing a property swap with OMS, we're gonna land right back on High Center. For them to find, maybe they have suitable property sitting in the wings waiting, but that's a pretty big if.
I mean, I think we've already moved off the High Center with just this discussion, so I don't think it's gonna hurt us any to make a simple phone call over to OMES and say, hey, this is the proposal. What do you guys think? Is there something that we could work with and make something happen? Because, I mean, it would be beneficial to you guys, it's beneficial to us. I think it's probably the best solution if we can make it work. I mean, it gives you control of that property, and the donor can work with you guys, and it makes things a lot easier, a lot smoother. I mean, it's just my personal opinion.
We can't move any further really until OMS is involved anyway. I mean, we've done our part. You guys asked, Gretchen worked on the grant with the donor. We got that accomplished. We got a lease. We put that before you. You came back with language that you wanted. We've looked at that. You mentioned the property swap. It's on the agenda today. We, at some point, you guys, the state, need to all get in line and figure out what it is you want to do and come back to us. If you can, you can. If there's property available, if not, then it would appear that there are other alternatives, reversionary clauses, etc. But it would seem to be that the cleanest would, for us all, just be to go our separate ways with regard to this property, and you all operate it and work with it. Then you can do whatever design build methods you want, there's no county process involved. But, I mean, again, we've had special meetings, it's not us. We're trying.
Well, we're trying to.
I know, again, I want to convey, from Commissioner Bond's perspective, transferring ownership is the easiest, simplest, cleanest thing. And so, that's our preference, so we're not trying to hold back a card here.
So just so we're clear, to go back to our leadership, the county is in favor of deeding the property over to the state. Is that what I'm hearing?
We haven't taken the vote on that. What I think you can take individually from our comments, you can draw your own conclusion with regard to that, but we're not, I don't think we're gonna take a vote today on a recommendation to the board. And even if we recommend to the board, keep in mind they could not agree with us.
I understand that.
I think you could take from our individual comments, kind of where we sit on that. Now, I think what we could potentially do, and Gretchen will have to stop me if I'm going too far, is we could instruct Stacy to work with DHS and OMS to do additional legwork on the potential for a transfer. Is that permissible? And Gretchen, as
Oh, to see if they have something
something
suitable and whether or not it's
available that
suitable?
would,
Sure, you could do that.
okay.
We're to come up with a recommendation on.
Yeah, his requirement then would be to bring it back to you and explain the alternative.
That would keep it
Yeah.
moving, I think, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
keep it moving, and Matthew, when's our next meeting?
27th.
So if something develops before that, we could look to have another special meeting, and try to keep the ball going.
All right.
Does that sound?
So, I'm sorry, just so I can understand right now. So right now, what's on the table, because I know you all had discussed maybe putting together a couple of options. So right now, essentially, we've got a possible quitclaim deed with a reversionary clause back to the county if the building ceases for use for services for children and families, or whatever language is in the release. Or potential, and we need to get OMS involved now too, or potentially a swap, a land swap. Is there any other options? Is the lease off the table now, or are we a possible still lease negotiation? Is that something that's still under discussion, or?
It's a different item. Can we kind of take them all together, Gretchen? Is that okay? All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's off the table for us, going in and negotiating lease terms on that. I think the issues that we talked about last time are still there, and whether we want to have some kind of escalator clause on the, that, whatever that number, 160? 160? And so that moves, you know, with an index, or if we have some kind of takeouts from that says if a catastrophic event occurs, then, okay, we have a reset button, you know. We're open to discussing those, I mean, or at least from this end of the table, Commissioner Vaughn's open for discussing that.
Well, I don't think everybody wants to make this happen. Everybody is pushing to make this happen. It's just, we have to, similar to you, we have to consider our interests and consider our taxpayers in the same way. So we have to make sure that we don't create more debt on ourselves.
And I think, again, if we're going down the transfer route, it doesn't make sense to negotiate the lease.
Right.
And so that's the only reason it sounds like it's a preferable thing for you. It seems like it's a preferable thing for us.
Right.
Let's run that based out, is kind of what I'm thinking.
I just kind of want to get clear all the options.
Sure.
And with the lease, if it's still kind of at the standpoint that the county is not able to assume any amount or risk over the 160,000 threshold that was discussed. If that's basically the position, just to make sure I understand and know all kind of the situation. Does that make sense? So the county's still unable to assume anything over the 160,000, any risk over the 160,000?
I don't know that we're in a position to answer that. We're not the county. I mean, that would be the board. But I'll tell you, my position on that hasn't changed, because we're going from zero risk, other than insuring the building, to 160 under the terms that were sent back by DHS. So.
Over 160.
Over 160, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything over, yeah.
Which still includes $1 million elevators, et cetera.
Yes. I would be open to, at least from my perspective, looking at lease payments to the county.
And then while we're at it, can I ask, is it possible to sell the property to the donor? Is that a potential option as well?
That would I think that would be extremely complicated, time-consuming, and there would be no way to directly sell it. There's no guarantee that the donor could receive the property, because it would be done by sealed bid, if I understand it correctly.
Is the county under the same requirements as the state is for unloading property?
I believe so. I mean, we have to open it up.
What is the process?
Well, that's not on the agenda, that's a
Gotcha,
problem.
okay.
Yeah.
So, it would be difficult.
Because it clearly says
Swap. Yes.
let's see,
Well,
But that's part of
to
the,
DHS.
that's part of a transfer though. Could you just discuss how
If
they
we were-
transfer property from the county
To
operates
DHS.
just generally?
Well, or if we were going to pursue that, what would we have to do to transfer the property to DHS? We can answer that.
No. He's not asking DHS.
Right, can you answer to?
I think I was pretty close, right?
Yeah, he's pretty close.
Go with my comments and take them as pretty close to the process. Difficult.
Yes.
That's okay. I'll take it off. I've got a general understanding. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that it's,
Yeah,
It could not be a direct sales there.
yeah.
Yep. Got it.
So, lease payments
Okay.
would be an option that these guys obviously have. So that, anything else on the lease, you guys, any other thoughts, alternatives?
I like his little escalator clause.
Yeah, I think we
I think
could,
if we feel that way, I think that's good.
we've got a long-term lease, and 160 today is obviously going to be a bigger number
Correct.
years from now, so.
Right.
Okay.
But I think at this point, we should make a motion to direct Stacy and Gretchen and to work with DHS
Go right
and
ahead.
OMS and to
Well, I
pursue
would
the swap.
prefer that it would be,
Just Stacy?
yes.
Okay.
Stacy can always call me, but
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that Stacy Trumbo works with Department of Human Services and OMS to work out a land swap. Yeah.
Okay, and that action, this motion is occurring under item,
possibility,
Possibility of.
and to come back to this board
And
with an update, and that is occurring under item 5.
And I'm about ready to second your motion. If I could clarify one thing. You're not trying to limit to just a land swap, just the terms of a transfer.
Just terms of transfer, yeah.
Are you good with that? Okay, then I would second that.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And a reluctant aye. Given your...
Is that on?
Okay, item 6, the lease, so nothing, I would assume, needs to be done with regard to that. We generally talk about it, so no action on item 6. Gretchen, is that appropriate?
Great.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry,
Lottie.
I'm sorry. Item 7 is more of just a general update regarding the proposed repurposing of the shelter. Anything additional, Stacy, Gretchen, anyone that we could, plus you discuss under item 7? Okay. So, no action there, okay? So that concludes the DHS portion of the agenda. Okay, Stacy will give it to you guys, and Jack, you, or who?
Probably Scott.
Well, actually, with the transfer, I'm probably gonna put him in communication with our property division. They would be the ones that will work this out.
I tell you what, let me just give you my direct number, and, yeah, call me and, I'll find out who needs to be involved, and we can go from there. It's 522-3539. If I'm not there, it'll go to voicemail, and I'll get right back to you.
All right.
Okay? Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
I love progress.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely, thank you, sir.
Can you flesh that out for the entire campus? The
Yeah,
parking
well-
side of it? Because I want to see what's left.
So here's
Can I have a copy of that?
Overhead.
They do have
Satellite.
We'll do a satellite.
There you go.
So we charge $70 a month.
They could amend the procedures, but
That would be our,
they just looked at it.
Potential
It's
revenue.
right.
I don't do it.
Do you want us to?
I don't know, get the parking.
No, you
Yeah.
don't have to. It's not a formal document, it's just a proposal. It's a drawing.
We can open 7 back up. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do 8 if we could. Discussion, review, and possible action regarding potential property locations for new storage space for the court clerk and DA's office. Stacy?
Yeah, I had misunderstood what I was bringing you last time, I thought it was for sale only, but it was actually sale or lease, information that I received from the assessor. So I've just amended this to show you out there in the far right column what's for sale and what's for lease. Just a minor correction to the deal last time. And that's, when I say it's a minor correction, like I've talked to the person that owns number one, it is for sale, but he would actually lease it if we wanted to do that. So some of these properties are probably still interchangeable, but just to be absolutely correct, that's how the document came to me, and I just left that information off. So you've got 3 for sale and 13 for lease.
Stacy, on the properties that are for lease, did you reach out to any of those folks to see if they would be interested in selling?
Not yet. That's on my list of things to do, is to contact these folks and have discussions, and for those that are for sale, get the sale price. So I'll have something better than the assessor's market value.
Okay.
I just wanted to correct the list and throw the other one in the trash can and use this one.
Motion to accept report, unless there's discussion.
Kevin, you have anything? Okay, there's a motion, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 4 is, discussion, review, and possible action regarding an update from staff on capital projects related to TIP 2.
We just met on Monday, so there's no changes since then on any of these.
Okay?
Discussion, no action?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, so item 9, wherever the rest of my agenda is new business, any new business? Okay, item 10, citizens participation, most of them have left. Item 11, board comments. Mr. Jacobs.
None.
Moss?
None.
Me? None. Item 12,
Motion to adjourn.
I like the adjourn better.
Adjourn.
Great French, great French.
Oh, adjourn for St. Patty's Day.
okay, what a good. Second. And a second, and we're all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you all.
I'd like to take it.